Welcome to Upwards, sponsored by the Microsoft Aspire Experience, where we share stories and insights to help you grow 1% better in your personal and professional life every episode. Here are your hosts for today's episode, Jake Hewson and Alex Kessel.
Well, Sophie, we're so excited to welcome you to the show. So glad to have you finally here. For those of you that do not know the amazing Sophie van der Stallen, would you like to just give us a brief intro on who you are and what you've done?
It's my pleasure. And thank you, first of all, Alex and Jake, for inviting me to the show. It's been on my bucket list for a while, so I'm glad that I'm one of your guests. So my name is Sophie van der Stallen. As my name and my beautiful accent tell you, I am not from the US, but I'm originally from Belgium, a tiny country somewhere in Europe that has the best chocolate, beer, and Belgian fries.
And waffles.
Let us get that straight. And waffles. I am an art historian who stumbled into HR. So I always say I stumbled into HR by accident, but I've decided to stay in it and make my career in it. So I've had beautiful opportunities in HR at Microsoft. I've worked for the Belgian office. I've worked for Central and Eastern Europe, which was an amazing region. And then I made the big move across the ocean all by myself with my cat to start working in the mothership. So it's been an amazing more than 3 years where I had the luck and the blessing to be responsible for our Aspire hires, our university talent for the US market. It was an amazing opportunity to bring this energetic and great talent into the company and to just help them grow and succeed. And 2 months ago, I took on a new role as the community of practice manager for our HR business partners at Microsoft. So I think kind of the red thread throughout my career has been one, enabling and inspiring and just helping people discover their potential. And two is doing that through community because we can't do it alone. We need to do it together. So that's my spiel.
Probably, what most art historians see themselves doing as soon as they graduate from uni is straight into building community at tech companies. But
Totally.
That's awesome. That's so cool. What was stumbling into the onboarding programs like for you? How did you hear about it and get interested in building these programs and communities, which I speak for Jake and I that you do an amazing job doing, but where did that stumbling happen?
So I didn't start my career in HR at Microsoft. I started it back in the day in 2008 now, which seems like ages ago. I started it in an airline in Belgium, so TUI Fly, which was a charter airline back in the day. And I actually started in recruiting. And I have to say, I didn't immediately go from art historian into HR. I did a business master's in between. So I was like that art historian that came out of college and was like, what am I going to do with this? Like,
right.
I don't know. I followed my passion. Yeah, they should tell you. I was like, I followed my passion and my interest, but then you're out there and you're like, what am I going to do with it? So I did a business master's. And for that master's, I had to do a consulting project. And so I did it at the airline around rest and duty optimization for the pilots and the cabin crew members in their schedule. And they had the opportunity for a recruiter to start. And I love the energy and kind of the culture of that airline. And I was like, I want to work here, whatever it takes. So I started as a recruiter, and that's where I joined. So I would say it took me 5.5 years there to kind of grow my career. And again, I learned a lot around processes, the importance of employer brands, and truly being super clear and putting out there who you are as a company and being very clear and honest with the talent you bring in on what they can expect. But I would say my massive learning journey and steep learning curve truly started once I joined Microsoft. So to tell you the story, like after 5.5 years, this airline, great energy, made good friends, but I was at a plateau in terms of like development opportunities that were there and growth opportunities that were there. So I saw on LinkedIn this job posting for an HR business partner at Microsoft. And I was reading the job posting and I was like, this is me. I mean, this is Sophie in a job description, with the only caveat that they were looking for somebody with 10 plus years experience.
Always the 10 plus years.
Always the 10 plus years. And I was like, you know what? One of my mantra is, you have a no, you can get a yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can try, you know? So I applied and I was like, let me try to apply and see where we get to. And I got called by the recruiter. And that was kind of like my first win. And then I had tons of interviews with both the team that I would be joining from an HR perspective, but then also some of the businesses I would be supporting. Because of course, as an HR business partner, it's pretty critical that the business also sees you as a valuable partner and somebody that they can spare with to truly build their people agenda and their people priorities. And I know at the end, there were 2 people in the running. So myself, with like 5 years experience, in recruiting, so not even a generalist role. And then a profile who had like the 10 plus years experience and had done generalist work and all those things. So I was like, oh my God. And then I got the phone call to say that I had the role. And like the world just stopped for a minute, you know, because I had a lot of interviews. And where in a lot of companies, when you need to do a lot of interviews, you feel kind of drained. But every interview I came out, I was like, oh my God, I want to join this company. And so when I got that call, I was just so excited. And still up until this day, I will be super thankful to Microsoft for taking a bet on me. And like saying, hey, you know what? You might not tick all the boxes, but we believe you can one day. And so the first time I got in contact with, I would say, kind of smaller onboarding programs is when I got in touch with Aspire for our Belgian subsidiary. Very different scale than the program you guys joined in, where in Microsoft US, we hire 120 to 140 Aspires every year. I mean, in Belgium, it was 4 to 8.
Right.
So it was a way different scale. But therefore, the first time I was like, hey, we need to do something to welcome this talent into the workforce. Because joining a new company and joining a new role is daunting for every person.
Sure.
So onboarding is critical anyhow. Mm-hmm. That being said, university talents or people coming out of college have never entered the workforce. So the mountain that's in front of them and the fear to climb it is just from another level. So what we tried to do and what was important to me is, one, make sure that as soon as this group starts, they feel that they have this tribe and this community that they're part of. So that when you look at this mountain that you need to climb, that you feel that you will be able to get there because you've got some good people by your side. So that's kind of, I think, where the first time I really got in touch with onboarding and the importance of onboarding, and definitely for this particular audience, that I believe that there were greater things to do in helping people just be successful in their role, but even more so in their personal and professional journey, and that they feel that they're not going through it alone.
Yeah, I think that's really cool to hear the excitement for that, to hear the HR version of it, as it were. It's cool to think that like somebody's excited about building that environment for somebody, and somebody like you looking out for people like us walking into the company. And even you described interviewing and just being excited about the role, and Microsoft saying, hey, you know, we believe you can get to this point. We'll help you get there. And then you kind of took that on as a mission for everyone else in building these programs to let them know we're going to help you get there. Have you just always had a love of sharing that excitement with people or empowering them? You mentioned you worked in recruitment before. How did that shape the methods by which you started building the programs at Microsoft and trying to think of how do I instill excitement and community?
In a way, it's been an interesting journey for myself in terms of discovering kind of like, what's your personal purpose and what makes you tick or what gives you energy? And if I look back just at not just my career, but who I have been ever since I was a teenager, is somebody that is super focused, making sure others have a great life. And I mean, that sounds like very fluffy and almost like a pageant answer, but it has been critical to me to, in small interactions every single day, make sure that the people I touch or I connect with in life leave a little bit better after that conversation. Whether it's feeling better, whether it's feeling more energized, whether it's believing in themselves, whether it's having certain knowledge like nuggets that they can go do something with. But that is kind of my personal purpose in life. I hope I leave an energizing, beautiful touch on people that they believe they can not necessarily do more, because do more always gives kind of this sense of, yeah, what you're doing now is not enough. You have to do more. But that they just can be their best possible self, and whatever that means. So that has kind of been my journey in kind of uncovering that and discovering that as I was navigating my personal development as well as kind of my career. How I bring this into the programs I built, first of all, it starts with how I show up. And if I don't bring that energy and that personal passion, I've been working with V teams. I've never had direct reports into me, so I can only scale and build a program with V teams. So volunteers that, like both of you have done, dedicate their time and have their personal passion and purpose connected to the work. So if I don't show up and if I don't walk the talk, it's really hard to bring your team and your V team along. So I think that's one thing. Secondly, within the V teams, it's how can I ensure that every individual in that team can bring his or her personal passion and strengths? Because I can go tell you to do A, but if you're absolutely not passionate about A, but you want to do C, and I might have not thought about C, yeah, I can have the greatest theoretical framework of the program I want to set up. But if you believe this is something you can bring more value to by the strengths you bring, but also to the group you're trying to build something for, it would be, stupid is a big word, but it would not be the right decision to force you into A. So that's, I would say, 2. And 3, I think in every program I've built so far, the element of community and of connection has been critical to it. So for example, if you think again about the onboarding program we've built for MS-US Aspire, everything has always started from how do we ensure that this community comes together and is glued together. And if we have that foundation, magic happens. Like you can do amazing things. You need to have that foundation of human connection and community. And that's what I think are kind of the 3 things that I consistently bring into whatever programs I've been trying to build or I built at Microsoft.
Masterclass. Everyone just got a lot of value out of that one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Honestly, I really do love how you kind of worded it, Sophie, and like being like that uplifting kind of force and that kind of person, bringing the energy like for life, not just for a career or for a role. And honestly, like Alex said, we were one of the very first people that Alex and I met at Microsoft. Not the very first, because like the very first was actually Alex and I meeting each other, which is funny enough. But I do remember being so nervous because my parents didn't go to college. I was a first generation college student and graduate. And I was just like really excited to have gotten into tech through picking like a technical tech focused degree, but I never ever could have dreamed of being at a company like Microsoft or just a large company like this. So I just remember being incredibly nervous, not just like feeling the imposter syndrome that a lot of early in careers face, but also just the like, you know, am I going to feel like another number? Are people going to like me? Am I going to like them? Like, I know that Microsoft has an Aspire program, an early career program. I know some other companies have that as well, but like, is this going to really be something that like, I feel like this is the right choice? And yeah, I really remember meeting you, Sophie, and just your energy and just, you can immediately tell that your purpose and calling really is to uplift others, and that genuine care for not just the role or the position or what be it, but just as a person. And that was the biggest thing that stood out to me. I was like, all right, like maybe I slipped through the cracks because I don't have the best skills for this role or whatever. But I was like, all right, like they're looking at me as a human being and how I can grow and they believe me in that area. And Yeah, I just want to thank you for that, because that was like immediately through the Aspire experience and going through it, that was one of the biggest things that stood out is I know a lot. Microsoft is a very, very unique program, and plenty of other companies have programs, but I do think it's the specific people that make that program great. So I too am very glad that Microsoft took a chance on you to get you to the point that you're at.
Thank you so much, Jake. And again, I think the reason why I am such a massive Aspire fan, and I will always, regardless what role I'm in, if I'm like directly working with them or for them or not, it's this audience that brings in so much energy and excitement. And I have this word in Dutch and I can't translate it in English because it doesn't exist, but the word itself is called goesting. And goesting means like, you know, you can't wait to get started. You can't wait to leave your mark and have an impact. It's like a beautiful word for it. And just, I always say it's easy for me to bring the energy to this group because the energy I got every single engagement with Aspires is just like your batteries getting recharged. It is unique. It is a unique group to work with. And I totally agree with what you said, Jake, around we sometimes underestimate how nerve-wracking it is for them to join a company from the size of Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And just empathizing with that and helping them understand that it's okay, you know, makes it easier for them to get a head start and get in there. And then one thing, yes, a lot of early in career have imposter syndrome, but I can tell you a lot of everywhere in career have imposter syndrome too.
Yeah.
Like it is a little beast that follows you.
Yeah, it really does. And I definitely agree with that, with like the nervousness. And there's a lot of good nerves too, but I do think that was something that I wasn't even like expecting to feel. And kind of like on that topic of like the nervousness or kind of some of the challenges or struggles that like you've noticed that early in careers might face, or kind of when working these programs, like when you are trying to empower people and from like day one, set them up for success in programs like Microsoft, like what challenges have you commonly run into that you're seeing being brought in? Because Microsoft obviously hires, at least from, you know, in me and Alex's experience, has many diverse thoughts and backgrounds. And I really think, at least in our class, it was, in my opinion, about as diverse as it could be. Like, what are the different challenges that you're faced when bringing in early in careers from so many different backgrounds?
Especially with all the things happening in our world, all the moments and changes that occur.
Yeah, and thank you for putting that out there, Alex. I think, to be honest, the biggest challenge we had was, I mean, there's other challenges, but the one that now comes indeed to mind is last year when we were preparing for our onboarding for the new class, suddenly you're amidst the pandemic. And our initial program, for those who don't know, is we typically would fly in all of our Aspires to Seattle and do kind of an in-person onboarding there for a week. And that was kind of the head start. And suddenly this isn't possible anymore. So you need to rethink kind of your full onboarding experience, where a big part of it was exactly those informal moments in the evening when we would do happy hours or fun activities where they would connect and would get to know each other outside of those moments where you're listening to execs or where you're getting a training around your role or whatever. And from one day to another, that option isn't there anymore. So you need to think like, how do you build that connection and that community in a virtual setting? Not even hybrid at that point in time, but fully virtual. And how do I energize my V team that was also excited to be coming together again and doing this and delivering this in person? So that was the first thing. And then secondly, it's really just reshifting the way you do things, because preparing for virtual deliveries is a whole different preparation than for in-person deliveries. That being said, I think it was a massive opportunity to also look with a different lens at the way we onboarded. And I think some of the value we bring now in virtual onboarding, where we start with pre-boarding, which we never did before, but we would start engaging and bringing the community together prior to their actual start date, that made a massive difference. That took a little bit of the nerves off, because we didn't start onboarding around like getting to know the company, the role, technical certifications. No, none of that. It was just connecting and getting to know each other. So we did some things that we'd never done before that I think have been great learnings, and maybe things that even if we ever go back to either a hybrid version or an in-person version, are amazing like learnings to incorporate in that. I think another challenge in onboarding early in career talent, or just onboarding in talent, is supporting the managers to make sure that they truly can welcome somebody in their team and set them up for success. Because there is a lot coming at our managers. I mean, we cannot underestimate, one, the importance of the role of a manager, and yet also everything that's coming at them. They need to run their business, they need to run their teams, they have personal challenges or things that they're working with. So for some of them, it comes more natural and easy to be super prepared and super ready to onboard somebody, or the team is even more mature to do so. For others, it is not. So yes, you have this diversity of Aspire coming in, but you also have this diversity of managers and teams they land with. So how do you create kind of this baseline to make sure there is a consistency and experience and people get set up for success? So I would say, and it's not just in early in career, it's in general when you onboard people, this role of a manager is super, super critical. I would say in early in career, because we sign the contract somewhere October, November, December, and they start somewhere July, August, there is a massive time gap between I sign and I start. And so the engagement in that kind of middle zone is critical, because that's where the nerve starts to build up. And the closer you get to the start date, the higher this nervousness is going. However, if you have a manager check in at regular moments, it creates a slowdown in the steepness of the nervous curve. So that's where it's really critical to help managers understand, but also support them to be able to do so and show them the value of their role in bringing somebody on board. I think one thing I've always been also pretty vocal about, and I think both you, Alex, and Jake know this very well, is definitely with early in career, when they come into a company, they believe, and it links also again a bit to imposter syndrome, but they believe they need to prove themselves immediately, and that, again, there's not a lot they can bring to the table yet. That's kind of this mindset that they start with. What I find super important is that I help them understand from the get-go that they do bring in certain skills, new perspectives, or passions that can make a difference. And I think what I've always enjoyed the most is when I connect with my aspires and they share their passion area with me. And Jake, I still remember yours was communication and communication skills and helping other people become strong in that. And I think what I always enjoyed the most about working with my aspires was helping them go after those passion areas, even if it was outside of your day-to-day. And kind of the podcast the two of you have now, the work you've done on communication skills and like the massive trainings you give there now, Jake. Or another aspire who was super passionate about music and was a great DJ, and he started DJing for the first time during our onboarding week. And suddenly he was like at big events and at virtual happy hours. And he was like out there and bringing his passion to Microsoft. And so helping early in career talent understand from the moment they join that they bring something. However, you need to be clear about what you bring. And I think that's the work you need to do yourself, of course. But that's just one of the most amazing things I saw happening. I was always so proud when I saw my aspires fly out and do great things.
No, that's great.
Yeah, and I really like how you phrased it, because I think it is also common. You're like taking the initial first day or the onboarding from who is the company, team, role, getting a lot of that important information, but now switching it to doing like a pre-onboarding approach that we did. And And now it's just about building community and getting to just genuinely know people and spending several weeks, several months, and just getting to learn about the people at the company that you're going to be working with on your team, in your class. And that to me is just such a pivotal shift that who knows it, like when or if we would have thought of that. I know other companies I've heard are starting to make that shift, but like if COVID didn't happen with a lack of connection, I find it so interesting that to me, that is something that I would have never thought of as an early in career, that any company would start reaching out and we could start connecting months before I actually start and have my real onboarding. So I think that is a really cool and impactful thing that came out of one of those very real struggles with bringing early in careers into a company.
So true. And another thing related to that is what we did during the virtual onboarding is open up a lounge in Teams. And I mean, you both know it. And this was kind of their informal space to go in and out and to have conversations with each other. Like, you know, when you stop by at the coffee machine. Up until today, they still use the lounge. And not like a little bit, but constantly. Like I get all the pings from the Teams messages that are going on in there. I'm like, oh my God.
It's the coolest thing.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. And so what was the best thing ever was we opened up the lounge for a year. And then the lounge kind of closed for that class. A couple of them said, hey, our lounge is closing. Let us set up a V.2. And it's still going strong. And to be honest, I don't know. I think the team that had the in-person onboarding has groups of people or individual people having built a super strong connection. So I think there's like those lifelong friendships that have started in that first physical onboarding week. I think the community itself and the scale of the community with these 2 virtual classes that have joined now is at a whole other level.
A little bit of a transition because I wanted to touch on something else that is near and dear to you. I know that recently you started a program for providing some emotional support to parents. Having recently joined that crowd yourself, which congratulations on that. That's so wonderful. And kind of just wanted to start digging into the experience of, you know, this other side of community and doing life together in a non-corporate work way that still very much matters to, you know, all humanity here, obviously, because there's more to us than just our work selves. What has that experience and community been like, and this program that you've started?
Thank you for calling it out. And the program is still in its early days. I'll tell you a bit more what it's all about or where I come from, but I'm at the point now where I'm collecting stories. And hopefully one day they will be online like this podcast, because that's how I want to bring them out in the world and what I want to share with the world. So indeed, a year ago, I became mom of a sassy, expressive little girl called Ella Lily Anna. So her middle name is Lily Anna, but she's Ella, better known as the E-Bear.
Oh, I love that.
She's amazing. I mean, of course, every parent brags about their kid, but just it is a grand experience to go through life again through the eyes of your kid. And just the curiosity and the enthusiasm and the energy is another level and is amazing. And they truly say, like, you don't know what it is until you have a kid or children. And it's very true. Like, I would have never imagined this. But let me tell you, those first 6 months transitioning into motherhood were rough. Like, there's tons of communities out there to help moms. And it's amazing. I mean, there need to be even more, and there need to be even more candid conversations. Because I have to say, struggling at certain times with becoming a mom, struggling with taking time for myself and like needing the time, but feeling guilty for taking the time, all those weird, crazy feelings and concepts that you suddenly struggle with, it still felt very often as if I was alone in those feelings, and that every other mom in the world could easily make those sacrifices and would do it all. And I was like, no, I can't. No, I need a little bit of sleep, and I need to take a bath, and I need to jump on my Peloton bike because I need to be healthy from body and mind to be a good mom to Ella. So my rational me knew that, but that emotional me was like, no, you can't, Sophie. You need to sacrifice it all for her. So it's a weird dynamic. And what I also realized in the whole process of like being pregnant and becoming a mom is we give a lot of attention to the moms. And please, like, I hope I'm not understood wrongly. I want this to continue, and this needs to continue. However, in the whole story, we forget the dad or the non-birthing mom. And for them, it's a journey too. Given it's not the physical one where for 9 months your body takes over and you have no clue what's happening, but it's doing everything it should be doing. There's not the physical, like labor is labor. It's a hard job, and then all the hormonal challenges afterwards. So yes, that's not there. But we underestimate the journey it is for them to define that part of their identity as well. And so what I'm hoping to get out there with the program we're building is providing a platform for dads to share their experience in a vulnerable way. So kind of create that opportunity for them to tell their story, to tell their challenges, to tell what it has taught them. Because I truly believe I could have not done it, or I could not do it if it would not be for the amazing partner that I have by my side. But it has been a journey for him too. And I think the strength of us as parents is because we have that conversation together. And we very intentionally, even before Ella was born, talked about who we wanted to be as a mom, as a dad, as a collective of parents. And not just from like, you change diapers, I take the bottles, but truly like, what values are important to you? What values are important to me? And how do we bring this together as parents? And I just want to provide that opportunity to bridge that gap between a lot of the focus and the stories we have around moms. Just bring dads along the way, and non-birthing parents, because it's important that it's not just dads, and get those stories out there. And from there, I hope we build a community that helps each other, that supports each other, that cheers for each other, that helps us normalize certain conversations. So yeah, I'll get off my soapbox now, but that is that is my intent.
That's wonderful. And I think that the idea of normalizing conversations and feelings that you're going through that, make you feel so isolated, and then, you're losing the energy and tearing yourself apart for things that are probably more universally felt. I mean, regardless of whether we're talking about parenting, motherhood, or onboarding, all this stuff, we're all feeling similar things, but we all kind of feel like we're the only ones feeling those things, because that's, I guess, just how humans like to function. So it's super cool to hear about, your desire to build a community there as well.
Yeah, I love the idea so much, because what you emphasize is it's not a shift of focus in terms of less support for the mother or the birthing mom, but just also support for the dad or the non-birthing mom. I think it's just such a cool area to make a platform for community and support, because at the end of the day, it's for your child, and if that person can get more support, if there can be a community built around that as well, I think at the end of the day, it's just going to make healthier relationships for the dad or the non-birthing parent and the child, both partners, and just overall, I think a really healthy start to an amazing journey of having a child. So what are your ideas and plans in terms of like building a community? I know that we had kind of briefly talked about you even starting up your own podcast, but what are your thoughts right now in terms of how you want to build that community for others? And do you think that the skills that you've learned in like corporate HR, building of communities here for early in careers, like I'm sure that there are the skills and experiences that you're like, hey, I'm ready to build another community in this, in some ways different and some ways the same, like Alex mentioned. But yeah, what are your plans to build this community? And do you think the skills you've learned so far in your corporate career have helped you make this journey?
It's a great question, Jake. And in a way, I think it's a perfect example of where imposter syndrome sometimes still pops up. The idea is still there to start the podcast. So the first thing I believe we really need to start doing is get stories out there. I can build a platform or I can build a community, but if we don't bring the stories to life in which others can recognize themselves or feel heard and seen, because that's what I hope you get to indeed, like you feel heard and seen and you don't feel alone in some of the experiences you have. So what we're really focusing on now is getting things set up to have the podcast ready to go. So it goes really from like, what's the name of the podcast? Who are the people going to be that we're going to interview with, to recording the first episodes and just getting it out there. So that's where I'm going to start from. And it's going to sound weird, but of course, when you run programs in a corporation and at the scale in Microsoft, yes, there's program management skills and project management skills that you need to have. By nature, I very much follow my gut. So kind of the way that I'm approaching this community is less so like, let me build a roadmap with timeline and milestones and my key objectives and my success metrics, but more like, okay, my first start is this, and I'm going to collect the stories. And my gut feel knows that once I have those first set of stories, I will know what the next step is. But I don't have it clearly written out in a roadmap. And that's what I mean with sometimes also the imposter syndrome popping in. I feel like, oh, there's so many people doing great things on either social media or out there to build community. Like, for example, the lean in circles that you have and things like that. Who am I to say that I can build something like that? I've only been doing some like onboarding programs or like community programs at Microsoft. What do I have to bring to the table?
Sophie, this has been an awesome conversation. And kind of to like wrap up and bring it to a close, something we always like to ask our guests is just some call to action based on areas or topics that we discussed during the episode. And I'd love to ask you, like, what are your thoughts on if you were an early in career listening and wanted to take action to start like enhancing communities that they're currently a part of, or even building community? Like, what is just one actionable piece of advice that you would give someone that wants to build or enhance that community aspect in their career and life in general?
Don't overthink it and just get together. Like, the strength of communities is not if they're massively thought through or designed. Yes, that's what we need for like the big scalable communities. If you're passionate about something and if you have a group of people that shares the same passion or that just really wants to build connection, just get together and make it flow. And I've noticed that very often early in career are best at doing that, better than anybody else. So I would really say, like, just get together, connect. Don't be shy to reach out to people. One thing that I continue to do and that I will always have time for, and I think that's one of the best advice to give for somebody just in their, not just career, but just in general in life, schedule time to connect with people. I still connect with, I call them frolics because they're not just colleagues, they're friends as well. From Belgium, from my Western Europe days, from my Central and Eastern Europe days. And it might not be that you talk to each other weekly or monthly, but just schedule time to connect with people because that's what makes us human. And that's what makes us tick.
I love it. That's awesome. And I love the ending, just schedule the time to connect. Like you said, it's especially now in this virtual remote world, I think it's so important to just schedule the time. It doesn't matter. Don't overthink how often, how long, but just do it. So I love it. Sophie, it has been such a privilege as always. Thank you so much for taking the time and just being that uplifting force for early in careers at Microsoft, outside of Microsoft. And just thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you. It was my absolute pleasure. And I hope I will be the first returning guest. I'm kidding.
Thanks for listening to Upwards. Be sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform and leave us a review. Learn more about the Microsoft Aspire experience at aka.ms/Microsoft Aspire experience. We'll catch you next time on Upwards.